it fascinating how two public figures can be in similar situations and yet handle them so differently? Take Trump and Kamala Harris, for example. Both have been put on the spot in interviews, faced with tough questions. But the way they react, it's like night and day. It says a lot about not just their personalities, but the kind of leadership styles they bring to the table. Let's rewind a bit. Not too long ago, Trump showed up at the Black Journalists Convention. A pretty bold move when you think about it. The Black community tends to lean Democratic, so for him to step into that space was kind of gutsy. And what happened? Well, he faced tough questions, as you'd expect. But instead of answering, he insulted the interviewer.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for Black workers and Black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically Black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that Black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the Black population since Abraham Lincoln.
I mean, that's his thing, right? When the heat's on, he flips the conversation and turns it into a confrontation. But why? It's a classic deflection. He wasn't really interested in answering the questions about his rhetoric. Instead, he made it about the person asking the questions, which shifted all the attention from his answers to the drama of the moment. Now fast forward to Kamala Harris. Yesterday, she was on Fox News. They weren't going easy on her. She was pressed hard about the Biden-Harris administration policies. And she didn't always give straight answers either.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
Voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the elite. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and
they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States.
As you can see, the questioning was tough. But here's the thing. She didn't insult anyone. She kept her cool. No jabs at the interviewer. No belief. It's such a contrast in leadership. Trump's approach is like, if you're not with me, you're against me. And when you're against him, he comes at you. It's confrontational, it's aggressive, and to his supporters, it's a sign of strength. It's like watching a brawler in a boxing ring. He's not there to play nice. He's there to dominate. And that appeals to a lot of people who feel like the system's against them, who want someone who will fight back, even if that means throwing a few punches below the belt. But here's the flip side. Kamala's style, where she's more measured, where she doesn't lash out. Sure, she didn't always answer directly, which can be frustrating, but she didn't take the bait to turn the interview into a personal attack. That restraint shows a different kind of strength. One that values keeping things civil, keeping things professional. And there's something to be said for that, especially in an age where public discourse often feels like a shouting match. So, this brings us to a bigger cultural question. What do we value in our leaders? Is it the boldness to fight back at any cost, even if it means refusing to answer by tearing people down in the process? Or is it the ability to stay calm under pressure, even when you're dodging tough questions? Trump's insult might fire up his base, but they also deepen the divide. They turn every conversation into a battle. Meanwhile, Harris' calm, even if evasive, keeps things from descending into chaos. It shows she's more interested in keeping the conversation focused on policy than on personal drama. It's like we're at a crossroads culturally. We have these two very different leadership archetypes in front of us. And how we respond to them says a lot about where we are as a society. Do we want leaders who reflect the conflict and division we see around us? Or do we want someone who tries to rise above it, even if they're not perfect? Trump's approach feels like a reflection of the polarization in the country. He's not afraid to add fuel to the fire. But Harris? She represents the desire for some level of stability and professionalism, even when things get uncomfortable. So, the real question is, who do we trust more to lead? Do we trust the one who fights back with insults? Or the one who stays cool under pressure? Neither style is flawless, but the choice reflects what kind of leadership we think will move the country forward or keep it stuck in endless conflict.